Hello, this is my 1998 Land Rover Defender 110. This is a UK import. I bought it in the UK about 2.5 years ago, and when I bought it, I had the goal of exploring countries all over the world by overland. And in that time, just 2.5 years, I've taken some pretty good steps toward doing just that. So this Defender and I have been on trips, overlanding trips. We've been to Scotland 8 times, Wales twice. It's been a few years with me in England and 20-something with somebody else in England before me. We've explored the bottom half of Norway, and this is Norway in early April, so that we had snow, above the rooftop tent on the side of the road. It's a very snowy time in Norway. We've been all through the national parks and state parks in Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, and we just got back from a trip in Canada, British Columbia, and a little bit of Alberta, the Banff area. In that time, this vehicle's only had pretty much one mechanical failure, and that was the clutch master cylinder went out. And that's an hour swap. That's a quick thing. It happened in my driveway. I went to work the same day. Like it wasn't a big disruption. Didn't leave me stranded. So I've had a couple of manual vehicles and many clutch master cylinders went out. So not really a big knock against the Defender. This thing has been wonderfully reliable. And if you're American, you may have a negative perception of Land Rover reliability, and rightfully so. But you may only be like 95% right about that. So I won't bore you with the story, but essentially Buick sold Land Rover an old gas V8 a long time ago, and that V8 ran for decades, well beyond when it should have run. And Land Rover just continued to bore the cylinders out bigger and bigger and bigger, and it didn't help with reliability, and it really cursed the name of Land Rover reliability. So much so in the US that Land Rover Discoveries started getting badged something else. The LR4, if you've ever seen that, had the LR4 badge because of the terrible reputation that Discovery had for reliability. So they changed the badge so that people didn't associate it with that bad reliability. Not a good look. Now, luckily for me, this does not have the Rover V8. This has the 300 TDI 4-cylinder, 2.5 liter turbo diesel, and the R380 manual 5-speed transmission. So this thing has a really simple drivetrain, manual, 4-cylinder diesel, very little electronics. After this engine, they went to the TD5 5-cylinder turbo diesel, which I hear is a great engine too, but it's a little more electronic. And for me, I don't think there's anything wrong with the TD5 at all, but I like the simplicity, the tractorness of this 300 TDI. It just sips fuel. It nearly pushes 30 miles per gallon. I mean, look at the thing. It can carry so much cargo, and is such a big monster off-roader, and yet it almost gets 30 miles per gallon. Wonderfully economic, very capable off-road. These are little 32s. This has no axle locks, no front locker, no rear locker, just a center lock for 4-wheel drive, and it's been some crazy places. I've done some crazy stuff in this thing just on 32s. I've been very impressed with its off-road capability, its fuel efficiency, its ability to carry cargo is crazy. It way outdoes any other vehicle I've ever had for cargo capacity and just the ability to do what an overlander is supposed to do. So for me, there is no better overlander than this Defender 110. A quick word about the history and sort of the genetics of the Land Rover Defender, its family tree, so to speak. The Land Rover Defender, this one, owes a lot of its physical attributes to its automotive grandpa, the Series Land Rover. So if you hear Series 1, 2, 3, there's like 2A lightweight. We actually got some of those in the US, so you may actually have seen those. If you're an American, you may actually be familiar with the Series Land Rovers and may have encountered one or owned one or whatever. A lot of those look so similar. That design language carried over for decades to this one. It's so similar that I wouldn't be surprised if you could swap some body panels out from this to a Series or vice versa. Like these fenders, the headlights, they stayed around for many, many decades, up to I think 2013. But a lot of these look very similar to their Series predecessors. Now, the Series 1, the very earliest Land Rovers, it's just a fact, they were Jeep copies. So the World War II Jeeps, very successful, and then Land Rover kind of decided, hey, we can get in on that too. And they built the very earliest Land Rovers supposedly on Jeep frames. So the Land Rover, the earliest Series Land Rovers were copies of Jeeps. And that, not to get on a tangent, but that kind of tells you how important Jeep was to the automotive world and to 4-wheel drive history. Jeep spawned Land Rover, and the Toyota Land Cruiser copied Land Rover, and so that really down the line, Jeep kind of bred the whole four-wheel drive industry. So it's very interesting. Anyway, this vehicle, this exact one, never really sold in the US. I know that somebody's gonna mention the NAS Defender if I don't. The NAS Defender, very briefly sold in the US. NAS is North American Spec Defender, NAS. They were available in America, but they had that lovely Rover V8 I discussed earlier. So as far as I know, all Rover V8s, all automatics, not my cup of tea. I'm sure somebody loves NAS Defenders and thinks they're awesome and they're worth more money for some reason, and I'm sure that's great. But for me, the Rover V8 and the automatic, I will leave that there. Also, I would never want to overland in a vehicle that valuable. They're very valuable, I think, just because they're rare and they have sort of a special story to them. They were sort of the forbidden fruit that slid in very limited numbers. U.S. safety regulations kept these out of the U.S. This is largely an aluminum body. So the ones that did sell in the U.S., the very few, they had roll cages. Even on the 110, they had a big external roll cage. If you've ever seen Doug DeMuro's channel, I'm sure you have. He had an NAS Defender, a yellow 90, is a soft top with a factory roll cage in it. And again, I'm sure that's great for a collector. Not my cup of tea. Functionally, I can assure you this is a better vehicle than an NAS Defender. Fuel efficient, manual, just this is much more interesting to me. Now this design carried over into like 2013. Now, they changed the drivetrain along the way, but it's amazing how long they stuck with this body. Then you get to the modern Defender, the one that we actually do have in the States now. It leans a little more toward being like a Range Rover. It's a much fancier, but still capable. It's a cool looking vehicle, I think. I don't think I'd ever buy one. I'm not really like a brand new vehicle kind of guy. But that's it. That's the genetics, the sort of history, the lineage of this Land Rover Defender. Now, if you don't mind, what I'd like to do is talk about why I picked a Land Rover Defender and some things specific to mine as far as overlanding is concerned. So as an overlander, you want one spare at least, right? I don't think that two is necessary, but you gotta have one. And mine gets to sit right here on the back where God intended. Nothing up underneath robbing ground clearance or up high, being top heavy. No storage space used up inside. Just on the back door where it's supposed to be. Now the cargo area is huge. The biggest cargo area that I'm aware of in a four-wheel drive vehicle that's not a Unimog. So this thing can legally seat 12 humans. So 12 people can sit in this, 12 seat belts legally, the full thing. We have a bench here and a bench here. This is 3 people on each bench. So 6 in the back, 3 in the second row, 3 in the front row. There's a middle seat in the front row. So that's 12 legal occupants of this vehicle. As you can imagine, that means that this back cargo space is enormous, and it is. So I never have passengers back here, and I load this thing down with cargo whenever it's time to go on a trip. What I want to do is make this into a fully organized drawer situation. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but I want to organize my 12-volt dual battery setup, a water system, and just general organization in that back area. So it's huge. I can make it into some sort of drawer setup, but I don't want it to come above my windows. I want to be able to see out of this back glass perfectly. I still want to be able to slide my windows to the side. I just don't want it to disrupt the daily functionality of this thing. This is not my daily driver, by the way, but I don't want it to completely rob my back visibility. So I want it to be a drawer system that's down low, functional, can hold a bunch of things, can hold my 12-volt fridge, but I don't want to completely sacrifice this back area permanently. So that's a challenge. That's something we'll do on the channel. I've done one really, really intricate storage setup that was also a fold-out bed for an Isuzu Trooper a long time ago. I think I'm gonna carry some of that experience over here, and that's gonna be a fun one. You should stick around for that one. My Land Rover Defender is tremendous at doing all the things that overlanders are supposed to do, and it does it with basically no mods. So we have factory Land Rover suspension, factory size all-terrain tire. I mean, it's an aggressive all-terrain, but it's just a factory size tire, nothing crazy. we have a terra firma snorkel that I installed about a week ago, just before my Canada trip, just so I could get clean air from higher and in case I needed to ford water. So I hope you picked this up by now, but this is a foreign import. This is a special vehicle, never really sold in the US, definitely not with a diesel engine at least, and worth a good bit of money, but I do not baby it. I take very good care of it when it's at home, but when it's adventure time, I ask a lot of it and it never lets me down. So I want to use this like an adventure vehicle. I don't want to be scared to use it, and I'm not. So I will ford water if it's in the way. I probably already pushed the limits of what I should be doing without a winch or without a partner. And on that note, I do carry Max Tracks with me everywhere. They've got me out of a jam a couple times, but I never go anywhere without the Max Tracks. I have a full-size roof rack, which is great because it's huge. It's the full size of the Defender's roof, and it can comfortably carry my tent, my iCamper SkyCamp 2.0. That's the last generation. And I'm obviously not sponsored by anybody at this point, but iCamper makes a fantastic tent. It's tremendously well made. Pricey, but tremendously well made. I couldn't even venture a guess at how strong the winds were this one time in Scotland, and just abusing the tent, the vehicle, just really blasting us with wind. And it stayed in one piece. It stayed on top of the car. Didn't blow. I think lesser tents would have been ripped or thrown from the vehicle. I'm convinced of it. The SkyCamp 2.0 held together just fine, and I've used it dozens of times since then with no problems. Nothing has ever gone wrong. No quality complaints at all with that tent. It is truly fantastic. Other than that, that's a snorkel, Max Tracks, the roof rack, and rooftop tent. Factory tire size. On the other side, I do have a canvas roll down shower curtain stall situation. I never use that thing. I was going to use it in conjunction with my Julka propane heated shower, but I just never use it. I've just always end up camping somewhere cold. I mean, you look at the list again, that's Scotland, Norway, Idaho, Montana, Canada. Those are cold places, and usually even a warm shower water is really, really unpleasant when the air is just frosty cold. So I don't end up using that shower curtain very much. I think I'm gonna replace it with an awning one day as budget allows, but awnings are very expensive and not in the cards right now. So I really like the full length, the bat wing, the really expensive ones. The 270 degree that are strong enough with their own sort of structure to not need the kick out posts that sit on the ground. I really like those big 270 degree awnings. I would love to have one of those, and that may be what ends up replacing that shower curtain on that side. But for now, the Land Rover Defender is basically stock, and I don't see it changing anytime soon. But I will make some modifications to better suit overlanding. But as far as off-road mods and that sort of thing, that'll be down the line. And also a teaser, I have a different vehicle for that. So stay tuned for that. If you like the Defender and all of its foreign importness, I think I may have something that you like even more. I suppose what I'm about to show you would be considered a mod as well as something that I need to improve upon because it's pretty critically flawed. So Defenders are tremendously quirky. Watch this. So you can pull the bottom seat cushion off and you have your battery underneath the passenger seat. So it's not under the hood. I have two batteries in the Defender, although Defenders don't need two batteries, generally speaking. So I have the starter battery up under here, about right here. I have an auxiliary battery that you can't really see. So I have a battery isolator in between them, and the auxiliary battery just powers whatever I hook to it. It used to be a 12-volt fridge, although I took that out a while back. I could easily hook it up again tomorrow. I do have a pair of 110 household outlets on an inverter in the back, but that inverter seems to be, I don't know, something's wrong with it. It's fried. So that inverter isn't working. But on this last trip to Canada, I did have a diesel heater that needed 12-volt power. I just wired some alligator clips to it, and I would run the wire through this window and then up to the diesel heater that would sit on the roof rack. The hose would go inside the tent, and we'd have a diesel heater. So I just alligator clip to the auxiliary battery, and we'd have heat all night. So this is not ideal. This would be one of the things that I need to fix with the rear storage situation to kind of get this 12-volt system handled. The 12-volt system in this Defender is really easy. This thing doesn't have a brain. It's just a tractor engine and an alternator. So getting that stuff together, putting it in the back, having maybe even the second battery sitting in the back. It's hard to cram it in here. It's hard to get to. Just that type of thing. Organizing all that stuff in the back, the 12-volt included, would be a big upgrade for me. And I think that's the way we're gonna go. So all this mess is probably gonna move from under this seat, but fun fact, Defender batteries under the seat. I mentioned earlier that I'm actually lucky enough to have a second import four-wheel drive vehicle, and it's something that never really came to the US market. But before I reveal to you guys what that vehicle is, I want you to give me your best guess. Give me your best guess. What do you think my second import four-wheel drive vehicle is? Is it something European? Is it something Japanese? Oh, if it's European, which country does it come from? Because England's not the only one putting these things out. You got the Defender, the Discovery, and the Range Rover Classic. Ooh, do I have a Range Rover Classic? We have the Germans making the G-Wagon, the Geländewagen. I love that thing. The Unimog. Do I have a Unimog? In Japan, we have the Nissan Patrol, the Toyota Land Cruiser, all the Land Cruisers, the 70 series. We have the Toyota Hilux, the legend of Hilux. We have the Toyota Hiace, that van with a bed on the back. What do you think? Let me know in the comments what you think my second four-wheel drive vehicle is. And while you're there, why don't you throw in what your dream import four-wheel drive is? If you like these older four-wheel drives and these sort of weird imports that never made it to the US market like this. If you like overlanding or hard off-roading, or if you don't, if you like the more traditional automotive shop stuff, vehicle modifications, vehicle painting, welding. If you like vehicle history, barn finds, stick with me. I'm gonna have all that and more coming up on this channel. I have multiple projects. We're gonna be painting a car. There's a classic sedan right outside this roll-up door that needs paint. We're gonna paint it right there in the center of the shop. This shop is a functional paint booth, and we're gonna paint it right there. We're gonna learn together. This is our first project, the ultimate overlanding machine. This vehicle already carries a lot of cargo and is very off-road capable, but I want it to be able to sustain an off-road overland trip for months at a time. So we're gonna install a front and rear locker. We're gonna install a winch bumper, a winch, all in this shop, all on this channel. We're gonna create a new cargo area. It's gonna be well thought out, durable. It's gonna have a water tank for drinking water for these many month-long overland adventures. And once this is the ultimate overland machine, either this vehicle or the one just off camera right here are gonna do a full exploration overland adventure in Iceland, including the F-roads. And one of these two vehicles is gonna do a full 1-year lap of the perimeter of Africa on an overland journey. Hold me to it. So if those things interest you, stick around. Just come see on the next video what this other four-wheel drive import is, if you haven't guessed already. So thank you for watching. I will see you on the next one.